So the parsha in Parshas Nasso spoke about if someone stole, they have to give it back. That was the beginning of the parsha. So the question was, let's say you steal from them and they're not around anymore, so you have to give it back to their relative. That was the pasuk Parshas Nasso, page 752. But let's say he says he's not around, and there's none of his relatives are around. The pasuk says, pasuk ches, v'mein lo ish goyel, if he has no redeemers, l'hashiv ha'asham elav, to return the lost object to him. There's no redeemers to return to. Which means if you steal, there's a mitzvah to give it back. What's the mitzvah? The mitzvah is v'heishvas akzela. You have to return a lost object. If anyone steals, they have a mitzvah to give it back. Right? That's one of the 613 mitzvahs. V'heishiv es hagezela. Gezela means a stolen object. You have to return. So if he's around, you have to give it back. If he's not around, then you have to give it to his relatives. So pasuk ches says, "V'mein lo ish goyel." Let's say the man doesn't have any relatives. L'hashiv ha'asham elav, to return this that he stole. So what does he do? He gives it la kohen. He gives it to the kohen,
right,
who will be in that mishmar, in that watch in the base of Mikdash. So the question is raised: what does it mean that there's someone who doesn't have a goal? How is it possible that someone doesn't have a relative? If he doesn't have a child, he has a brother, or he has an uncle, or if he doesn't have an uncle, but his uncle's son. How is it possible to say that there's no one who is a relative? That's the question here. So the answer is that we're talking about a ger.
Oh.
And therefore a convert, he doesn't have any relatives.
Right.
Because the rule is ger shenes gayer kikoton shenoila dami. Right? You know this rule?
I know the concept. I don't know the meaning of that, but I know the concept that a ger has no family except Aram and Nasara and Manu.
Even that, right? It's not. It still is not really his family. So it says ger shenes gayer, a ger that is megayer, a convert, who converts is kikoton. He's like a koton. What's a koton?
Child.
Shenolad. Shenolad. That was.
Hasn't been born.
Shenolad.
Oh, that's been born.
It's been born. He's like a newborn baby. That's the rule. And we look at him like he's now he's like just born again, and therefore he doesn't have any family. His old family is from the past, but it's not his family anymore. That's the rule. And therefore, right, that's what the Rashi brings down here, that the verse here is talking about a convert who died without children.
Oh.
You did a search. You checked out to see if he has any children, but you couldn't find any. Ve'im, right? What is ve'im? Ve'im means if he doesn't have any goal, which means you have to check it out. And therefore, since he doesn't have, you give it to the Kohen who was serving in the base of Mikdash at that time. Usually, if a ger dies, in general, and he leaves over something, so that's a classical case of what happens to his property in general. Let's say a ger dies and he leaves over a house. What happens to that?
It goes to the temple? I don't know.
Well, no, that's this rule. That's this pasuk here. But usually, what would you say, David?
Goes to the community.
A ger dies and he leaves over a big mansion. Who gets it?
Maybe his rabbi or so?
Community.
I like that answer. But
That's
community? I don't know.
Hefker. You know what Hefker means?
Ownerless.
It's ownerless.
Oh.
If he dies without any children after the gerus. So therefore, whoever wants could come and take it. It's Hefker. But here the Torah said, because this particular case was that he stole it, and it wasn't just a ger died. If a ger dies, so whoever wants could come and take his property. But here, what happened was, there was a whole story that happened that led up to this. First, someone stole from the ger, and not only that, the ger tried to ask him to pay it back, and he denied it, and he swore that he doesn't have it. So now he has to pay back, but he decided to do teshuvah a little too late. The ger died. So it's an interesting din here. Maybe he's missing out on part of the mitzvah. He can't give it back. Which means, here is the source, by the way, for the mitzvah of when one does repentance, they say vidoi. Vidoi means confession. It's this pasuk. Look at the pasuk inside. Pasuk Zayin. V'hisvadu es chatasam. He says vidoi. He says confession on his sin that he did, and he feels bad. So here is the place where it says that you should do teshuvah. Then the main part of teshuvah is to confess it, not just to say it out, but it means with feeling bad. So now, here, if he doesn't have it, so the Torah now says, but it's not hefker now. It doesn't go into the general rules of a ger that dies. Here it goes into new rules that you should give it back to the Kohen, and that will be a little bit of atonement for the person. So he'll give back what he stole, and there's a special rule he adds in a fifth, being that he swore falsely also and denied it. He also adds a fifth. Usually you just give back what you steal, but if you steal and you swear and you deny it, that's called an asham gezelos. Asham gezelos is a special carbon that he has to bring. It's called a carbon asham for gezela. Asham is a guilt offering. He brings this carbon, which is it's spoken about in Parshas Vayikra, and that's what it's called, asham gezelos. It's right in the end of the.
But a fifth is a normal. Isn't a fifth a normal?
Why? Why is it normal?
In anything with gezel, isn't there a fourth or a fifth? Anything to do with stealing? Don't you have to add a fourth or a fifth depending on what it was? No? Oh, okay.
No. What you do sometimes, if you're apprehended by Bezdin, if the court apprehends a person and he says, no, I didn't steal it, and they apprehend him, then he has to, and the witnesses catch him, he has to pay kefel. What's kefel? Kefel is twice. You have to pay double. Like kefel is double. But you don't have to pay. Usually, you only just pay what you stole. Except you might be thinking of the person who steals an ox and slaughters it.
Yeah.
You remember that story?
Yeah.
What happens to him?
Depends if it's an ox or a sheep.
Oh.
Depends on his embarrassment to carry around the extra.
Right. If it's a little sheep, then he has to give back the sheep or the amount of sheep and add on
1/5.
Is it a sixth?
Not a fifth, not a sixth,
A 10th?
not a tenth.
He's got to bring back.
More.
I thought it was 1/5.
It's called Dalid Vehei. Dalid Vehei. We say in Parshas Mishpatim.
5.
Dalid
4.
and Hey. The answer is depends what he stole and what he slaughtered. If he stole a little animal and he wasn't so embarrassed by carrying it on his head, well, it depends. If he had to carry it on his head, so he was more embarrassed. So then he has to pay 5 times the amount.
Oh my God.
But if he stole something which he could leave, he doesn't have such embarrassment, then he pays only 4 times the amount.
Wow.
So that's how it is.
4 times or 5 times.
Right.
I thought it was
We're
the amount plus a fifth, or right, 4 times. Okay, right,
So-
right.
So if
I
you,
apologize.
no problem, no problem.
What does that mean? Doled achay? No.
Dalit is alapay, Gimel Dalit is 4 times, or Hey is 5 times.
Oh, okay. Oh, 4 or 5 times. Okay.
So if he steals an ox, the ox walks, so he wasn't so embarrassed. So then he has to pay 5 times the ox. But if he stole a sheep, then he already got embarrassment because he had to walk around with it and steal it on top of his shoulders. So therefore, since he already got embarrassed, the verse states in Parshas Mishpatim that he pays only 4 times the amount. And we see from here, says Rashi, that even a thief, Hashem has pity on him. How much more you have to have pity and make sure not to embarrass your friend.
Yeah, but that would mean that everybody, That would be not. Almost everybody has to become an Evet Ivri, because if he stole in the first place one because he didn't have the wherewithal, how is he going to pay 4 or 5 times? So he goes into becoming a slave almost automatically. Almost everybody would. I mean, the theory behind it is that you don't have, so you take. So how are you going to take and return 4 or 5 times the amount if you didn't have the original one to begin with?
You might have to. You might have to. You shouldn't be stealing in the first place.
No, granted, 100%.
You want to know how will he ever get out
But
of it?
wouldn't that
He'll have to turn into...
Wouldn't that be the way most Hebrew slaves became Hebrew slaves?
It's possible.
Or someone could sell themselves on their own if they don't have enough money.
Or something.
Yeah, that's also one way. Could be.
Unless somebody does it for a challenge and has plenty of money that he could pay back for 4 or 5 times.
Yeah, you have to know the exact case. So this is what it's called: someone who steals, and if they deny it, they have to. Then they steal and they swear to that matter. Then they have to bring what they call a carbon asham, and it's a special type of asham. There's 5 types of carbon ashams. 5 main types, and this type is called an asham gezela, gezelos. Gezela means
to steal.
Right. Yeah.
But isn't this contrary to the other rule that a guy can swear before the Bet Din and they can almost absolve him of the insinuation?
If he swears, yeah.
Or they say, I owe you 50 and I gave you 25, and he really didn't, but he swears that I gave 25.
If he swears, yeah, but here he swore, then they were about to let him off, and then witnesses came in and say, what do you mean? We see that we caught you red-handed. Or, in our verse, in that case, if the witnesses come in, he has to pay kefil. Kefil is how much?
You said double.
Double. In this case, the witnesses didn't come in. V'hisvadu. Hisvadu comes from the word vidui. Here,
his confession.
He's coming on his own. He feels bad, so he wants to do confession. He wants to do repentance. So in that case, he has to pay also, because swearing only lets you off the hook, because that's a way of that the bezdin, the court, could be mevarer. Mevarer means they could clarify things. A shvu is a way to clarify, right? That's what they have in the courts. They have an oath, right? And you have to pick up your hand and swear. So it's a birur, it's a clarifying. It will make sure that he's honest. So if he swears, okay, we say we got a birur already, we got a clarification. But let's say he comes, either he comes and confesses, or witnesses come, then the whole clarification is already knocked out. There's no more clarification. So he has to pay. So this is what the Torah writes here. Torah is writing here, he's taken someone else's money, he has to give it back. And not only does he have to give it back, now that he swore falsely, he has to bring a korban, asham gezelos. He also has to add a fifth. He has to add a fifth as a knas. Knas is you ever heard of the word knas? Fine. It's a fine. Knas. Right? If you come late, we give a knas. So, a knas is a fine. So here too, Torah gives a fine, maybe because you might think he didn't do anything wrong, he just stole it, he was going to give it back. So Torah is telling us, no. In these cases, you might have paid it back, but you also have to bring an offering, and you have to pay him back the principal and a fifth more. Here's a fifth, because it was something wrong. Okay, so that's the law of the asham that we bring for Gezela. Now, based on that, now that we got that part, now let's go back to our pasuk. So what does the pasuk say? So our verse states that you give it back to him if he's alive. Let's say he's not alive, give it back to his relatives. If he doesn't have any relatives, right, page 752. Let's say he doesn't have any relatives, so you give it, who is that doesn't have any relatives? That's a ger. That's a convert. So, and he didn't have any children, so then you give it to the Kohen in the base of Mikdash, and that is part of his way that he gets atonement. Now,
Is there a question? Somebody who's had children and then converted, is his children considered heirs to his estate?
No.
No.
No, because
He gives up even his children?
well, in terms of in certain aspects.
Like if it's a slave in a master's house, then it's different. Like it becomes the master's children's.
I'm saying in terms of his children, he doesn't have any yichus together with them. They're not considered his family.
Right.
Maybe in certain ways they are. Maybe he shouldn't hit his father still. Maybe he shouldn't curse his father still, because it could be maybe the physical fact that he was his father. Maybe that still stays. But in terms of
Children, they're not his children.
In terms of children, it's not his children. In terms of, you could think about the question of the mitzvah of Peru Uruvu.
Mm-hmm.
Peru Uruvu is the first mitzvah in the Torah. What is that? What's the first mitzvah in the Torah? Do you know this one? What?
Shall not kill?
No. That is
Honor your father?
that honor your father is later.
No.
These are no, but this
It's
one.
in the times of Adam and Eve.
Adam and Eve. The
Adam
first
and
mitzvah
Chava.
was to have children,
Oh.
and this is the mitzvah.
Oh, 9 o'clock.
Yes, this is the first mitzvah, and it's a very big mitzvah. Up to the point that the Navi writes that the world was made l'sheves. L'sheves. L'sheves means
To rest? No.
no. It literally might mean to sit, but it means to dwell, to populate, to settle. Like you should have a good yishuv. You tell people when they move to Israel, yishuv, a good settlement. So the world was made. God wanted us to populate the world, and therefore, it's a very big mitzvah to have children. So here, the question is, if someone is a ger, he doesn't have children. So you're asking if he converts, does he have the mitzvah pruhu? Could be, still has the mitzvah of having children. Could be.
Prior one.
I have to look up on this. Now, it's interesting to note the word ve'im. It says ve'im. If, on verse 8, ve'im ein lo ishgoel, if the man does not have children. So, on that the Gemara says, ve'im, if he doesn't have children, which means, what does ve'im mean? It means you have to check out. You have to see if he has children. How do you see? You have to go check out his family tree. So the Gemara says, ve'im means that only a certain person do you have to check out his family tree. But there's another person where you don't even have to check out his family tree. You know for sure that he doesn't have any children. And who is that? So this pasuk is referring to a convert who's an adult. But if he'll be a child who's a convert, then you don't even have to check out.
Oh, right.
Because he's a child.
Yeah.
Because a child, right, let's say he's under 13 or 9, so he cannot have children yet. So you know that if he converted, he doesn't have any relatives. You don't even have to look. You don't even have to get his family tree out, because you know he didn't have any children. That's what the Gemara says. So it's interesting to think about that case. That's the case. Comes out that the verse is telling you two things. Ve'im ein leishgoyel, if he doesn't have any redeemer, because he is a ger. So ve'im, you have to check it out, and if you find out he doesn't have children, ve'im, if not, then you give it to the kohen.
I thought you said it's...
Well, it depends. In which case, depends what happened to him. He died, and now
didn't have any children.
And what do you want to get now? What are we dealing with?
Oh, you're talking about if he stole versus
Right.
what his property was.
Right.
Okay.
If he had property, the property is hefker, the ownerless.
Right.
But the money that was stolen from him,
Right.
that goes back
Right.
to his relatives if he has,
Right.
and if he doesn't have relatives, then it goes to the Kohanim
Okay.
in the Beis Hamikdash at that time. That's it by an adult, and we infer that if this will be a child who's a ger, the child who's a ger has a different story. You don't even have to check him out if he had any children. You don't have to look and ask if he got married. It's fine. We know that he didn't have any children, and therefore you could just give it to the Kohen. Straight away. Now, the question that has to be asked, right?
You would still have to find out the ger has parents. I mean, you know he doesn't have children,
Yeah.
but
Why do you have to find out?
oh, okay, because his parents wouldn't be his parents. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right. Yeah, right. It's tricky. It comes out, even though his parents,
Yeah.
they were Megayer also,
Yeah.
but they're not his parents now. It's a funny thing. But that's what comes out.
What happens if they convert? Still, it's not. If the child's parents convert at the same time with the child,
Yeah.
still you're starting over,
Depends
right?
if
So
they're pre-bar bat mitzvah age, no?
Yeah, but it's still, but they're all, well, we're going to get to that in 1 second, but
Oh.
they're all like born again.
okay.
So now, the question here is, now David's talking, and David wants to know, or actually right now, Irving is bringing up, how do you have a case of a ger katan? Where do you have a ger katan? Right, a minor. Katan is a minor, right? You know what a katan is? Write that down. Katan is a minor. How do you have a ger katan? So what do you want to say? What's the classic answer? What do you think?
He converted by himself.
But the question is, does he have the proper das? Does he have the knowledge to be Megayer? Could he say, I accept upon myself? Right, there are 3 parts to the gerus. What's the 3 parts to being a ger?
To give up your life to Hashem.
Right, you accept.
You're accepting to die if you have to for Hashem.
Well, in general, it's one statement that you say that you're accepting on yourself the yoke of Torah. It's called Kabbalas all mitzvahs. You take on the yoke of the mitzvahs. So general, one big mitzvah, one big acceptance of the whole Torah. That's the first thing you do. Second thing you do,
The breath, I guess.
bris milah,
The mikvah.
and the mikvah, 3 parts. So the question is, can the ger make such a decision? Could he say,
Can a
katan make such a decision that he wants to keep the mitzvahs? He's a minor. A minor can't really make transactions. He can't sell you something. Can't buy. So how does it work?
I think they have to ask him, if they do it as a cut, then they have to ask him at the age of bar mitzvah if he's still beseder with everything.
Right. So it's interesting. How did they even do it in the first place? So it seems that the Bezdin, it's like they're his agent. And if he would have real das, if he would know, he would really want to make them a shliach. He would make them a messenger, because it's a zchus. Zchus means it's a merit. It's a good thing to become a Jew. So being that it's a good thing to become a Jew, he would want you to be his shliach to convert him. So it's like you're his agent to convert him. That's what the Gemara learns out. And therefore, Reb Huna said that the Bezdin, they take him and they put him in the mikvah, and they convert him, assuming that his mother or his father comes and brings him in, that he should be converted. Now, the question is a little bit that, how does that work? Could a small minor, could he make a shliach? How could he make someone a messenger for him? He's a minor. He really doesn't have the knowledge even to make a shliach. So really never gets off the ground. So Tosu says that it works on a Rabbanan level. And we call him that he's Jewish on a Rabbanan level. So according to this, it works very well what Irving is saying, that when he becomes bar mitzvah, then they have to ask him again, and then they ask him, do you accept all the mitzvahs? And then if he does, then he'll actually become a real full bona fide ger.
What's the laws on talking about gerim? After somebody has gone through the process, you're not allowed to, if I understand correctly, you're not even supposed to hint to the fact that this person is a ger. But maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong in that. But can the person that is a ger, can they say it on themselves to other people?
Well, they're allowed to. There's no problem. You're allowed to say
You're not
he's
supposed to bring back somebody's past, whether they're a ger or not.
Well, you're not supposed to say to him, when you're learning, let's say, the laws of meat and milk. So you shouldn't say, well, you shouldn't eat meat and milk together, and even if it might taste good, right? Then you'll say, Harry, does it taste good? Tell me how does a cheeseburger taste?
Oh.
That you're not supposed to say to him.
Oh.
Okay.
Or you shouldn't say, tell him anything which might offend him. To tell him, let's say, you're coming to learn Torah. You used to do all types of things. You used to speak with.
That you can say about most of us.
Right.
That are born Jewish too, though.
Okay.
And
yes.
so is that also an avera?
It's an avera. It's a pasuk in the Torah in Parshas Pichu Kosai. It says, "Loi soinu ish esamisa." We touched on this once. Lo sonu. Not only should you not make sure not to take money from your friend, overcharge him or undercharge him, because that's hurting him. But you also have to make sure not to hurt him in a different way in terms of words.
Right. Okay.
You want to see that verse inside?
It sounds familiar.
So turn back to page 700 and it's actually in Bahar. 700. Yeah, 698. 698, 3 lines on the bottom. Person to be careful not to aggrieve their friend.
Right.
So that's talking in terms of one's friend.
We did talk about this.
Well, you remember? So you'll see they have a whole explanation here on number 17 that you can't say anything about their past or anything. If they bought a car, don't say, "Oh, you bought that car. That's such an ugly color." You can't return it, and you're not allowed to say that. That's a noas devarim.
So you are allowed to say that somebody is a ger if it's not in a demeaning way to that person.
Yes.
I thought you weren't even supposed to bring that up that they were.
Maybe it depends on every person, but you're allowed. It's not a problem.
I thought the opposite. Okay.
Now we're just saying here that a ger.
David, we're going to dive in here. Our class will be finished at the same time, isn't it?
Now a ger, there's a special mitzvah called v'ahavtem es hager. You should love the ger. So that's maybe what you're referring to. Besides for the mitzvah of you should love your fellow Jew, and you shouldn't hurt your fellow Jew, but there's a special thing of you should make sure not to hurt the ger because he has a hard time. He might feel bad. He might get offended.
And we're supposed to remember how we were strangers also.
Right. Mum shabacha al tamer lechavercha. The phrase, the aphorism says, Mum shabacha, a mum. What's a mum? A blemish. Shabacha. Shabacha means, what's becha? What's licha?
Lecha?
Yeah.
Is towards, to go to something. Of yours.
You.
Of yours. Yeah.
Right. Lech means go.
To go.
Lecha is to you.
Yeah.
Becha, a bez means in you.
In you.
Bez is in you. Be Mitzrayim is in Mitzrayim. So mum shebecha, a blemish in you. Al taim l'chavercha. Don't start telling your friend about a blemish if you yourself have the same blemish. So too, we were in Egypt. We came out. We were strangers. So therefore, we shouldn't try to say anything not so nice to strangers because we ourselves are strangers. So we're like going to make fun of him. He's a stranger. We were also strangers. So that's that. Now it's interesting that it does come up also with a mother who's pregnant and she has a baby inside of her, and then she converts. That's a question that comes up also. What do you call it? What's the baby? Do you say that, well, the mother, she converted, so the baby also converted? So it depends how you look at the baby. Is the baby like a limb of the mother? If the baby's like a limb,
Right.
so then the baby will be just converted automatically with the mother.
Up to what age?
In the mother's stomach?
Well, no, I mean, once the child is born, then it's just supposed to have a conversion?
Then to what?
All separate conversion?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So you have to wait till an age where
Well,
understanding or something comes in.
well, if they wait, then they could do it with Bezdin. The court could do it, but it will be on a Rabbanan level.
Right, and then at the mitzvah she has to take it upon herself.
Right. Yeah, Rav Moshe Feinstein actually has a big back and forth. Rav Moshe says you have to tell them at 13. The question comes up with adopted children. Do you have to tell them? Or is there a way to get around it? Maybe you could just tell them that they have to keep the mitzvahs. It's a back and forth on that. Rav Moshe and Rabbi Dayan Weiss speaks about that. But in any event, that's the big question here. Like, where's the child? You have to know. If the child is like part of the mother, then you're right. Then he's automatically a Jew. If he wouldn't be part of the mother, then he's like a separate part. Which means in terms of the mikvah, so when the mother becomes a Jew, and he goes in the mikvah, so the child becomes a Jew. That's if you hold the child as like part of the mother. If the child's not part of the mother,
Right.
so then the Gemara says, when the mother goes in the mikvah, but the child is also going in the mikvah. You might ask, yeah, but there's a chatzitza. You know what chatzitza is?
It's a separation.
Right? There's separation. That something is separating. Just like you can't have anything when anyone goes to the mikvah to make sure that there's no, let's say, nothing on you, let's say a band-aid, to be very careful that nothing is interposing. No hairs can be stuck together, right? That's why you have to brush out the hairs and brush the teeth, and make sure there's nothing inside. If the floss, to make sure under the nails there's no chatzitza. That's a chatzitza. You got that word, chatzitza? Chatzitza is an interposition, something which is a little bit of make a separation. If there's dirt which a person wouldn't want, that's called a chatzitza. So, but here where there's a baby inside of her, the baby, the mikvah works for the baby, because the baby's going in the mikvah. It's the same thing, just like under, let's say, your hair, under your hair. That's also, maybe it's not touching the water. Let's say the part where there's a root, the root of your hair, right? Where that's not going to touch the water, but your whole body's going in the mikvah. So too, the baby's going in the mikvah. You'll say, yeah, but there's a chatzitza. That's not a chatzitza because that's the natural state where the baby's supposed to be. That's where the baby grows. So therefore, for the baby, it's not a separation. A separation would be something that's not supposed to be there, that you are makbid about. Makbid means you don't want it there. Something you don't care, a little tiny piece of dirt you don't care.
Is this before birth or after birth?
Before.
Oh, okay.
Before birth.
So the person's pregnant. Okay.
Yes. So something you don't care about ain't a makbid. You're not makbid. That's not a chatzitza. But something you are makbid, that would be a chatzitza. If a lady would be, she would say, look at this, a little dirt here. That would be that would mess up the tefillah. That wouldn't be a good tovel, because it has to be without any separation into the water. So too the baby, when the baby is in the mother's stomach, the baby's going in the mikvah. You want to say, there's the separation. There's no separation. The Gemara says, because that's where the baby grows. That's the natural place for the baby. That's just like underneath your hair or underneath your skin. It's all going in the mikvah, right? Let's say a person will get a cut, and then some blood will come out after they go to the mikvah. The blood is he's all tahar, he's pure. Even if they get a cut after, you might say, but the water didn't go in the cut, right? But the body went in. The body's clean. You're tahar. So to the baby, that's how the baby goes in the mikvah. According to that, there's two views. If you say the baby's part of the mother or not. Okay, so that's on that. Just to go into one thing for Parshas Behaalotcha. We have 2 minutes here.